Throughout the country, the early 1980s brought dramatic and disruptive changes to lives of vulnerable people. As a result, more of them were left on the street, and many of them were soon to be ravaged by AIDS. That was the backdrop for a healthcare strategy that crystallized locally as the Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program. A medical doctor who was one of its key figures has told the story in a very personal way in a book called Stories from the Shadows, Reflections of a Street Doctor. Along with having received the Albert Schweitzer Humanitarian Award, he's also in the faculty of Harvard Medical School. And we'd like to welcome Dr. James O'Connell. Thank you very much for being with us, Doctor.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Chris.
I'm not going to take you all the way back to the beginning, but there is a crucial juncture when you were just coming out of medical school and you had a choice between going to oncology and helping people with cancer and going to a shelter and working with homeless people. So why did you make the decision for the latter?
I think the truth is because my chief of medicine, whose name is Dr. John Potts, and Dr. Tom Durant, who was at the time one of my mentors at Mass General Hospital, had been involved with the city of Boston trying to get a grant to help homeless people. And they called me into the office, to be very honest with you, in March of my senior year and sort of asked me what I realize is a rhetorical question, that they were looking for a full-time doctor to try to help spearhead the beginning of this program, and would I mind delaying my fellowship for a year? And I valued my career enough to have said yes, but I thought honestly that I would do this for about a year as sort of an urban Peace Corps journey, and then I would get right back to doing oncology. But you know, after the end of the first year, it was so complex and so challenging that I was kind of bitten. So I asked for a second year and did that, and then the rest is now like 30 years that have evaporated like nothing.
Well, as you point out in the book, you didn't invent the first wheel here. You work with people who knew a thing or two about how to do this kind of work. And you started from the bottom up by washing people's feet.
Right. I had the, as it turns out, the privilege and really the blessing of going down to Pine Street and thinking I was going to be the doctor to start running the clinic down there. And there had been this amazing group of nurses who had been running a clinic there for 15 or 16 years, led among others by Barbara McGinnis, who was a nurse who then went on to become really my hero and mentor. And they were very chary of a doctor showing up from the big hospital who thought he or she might know what to do with homeless people. So they sat me down, read me the Riot Act. I have an older sister who's a nurse, so I know what the Riot Act sounds like. And they said that I would do well to have an apprenticeship, and my apprenticeship was to soak feet for almost 2 months. No stethoscopes, nothing like that. So I had to sort of put away all the things I had learned in the academic medical center and get used to soaking feet, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, there isn't much in your book as far as details about medical terminology or science. You said it's about presence and consistency. Explain that.
It is. I think what the nurses, and really for any of the nurses listening, it's really the nursing theories that were informed our program and still do. Barbara used to say that the lives of homeless people would never change unless you could take time to be present, to be in their lives, to be where they are comfortable, have coffee with them, share stories. And she cautioned us to really understand that we didn't do that in the hospital very well. We used to seeing people in 5 or 8 minutes and moving on, and if you didn't do that, somebody was asking what was slowing you down. And nothing changes with a homeless person when you do that. And that soaking of the feet, I think, was nothing other than two things. It was reversing the power structure. So I was at the feet of someone, and that was the brilliance of what the nurses were doing, and nowhere near their personal space. And it gave them a chance to get to know who I was from their own perspective. And then the second thing is it got me to understand that what somebody would tell me on the first night or the second night or after the second week was not what they might tell me after they had trusted me and it was 4 weeks down the line. And I have some of the stories, you can see the unfolding of it was as they trusted us more. So that was it was an easy lesson to learn, a tough lesson to enact, because there was so much going on, so many medical issues going on, and so much that we had to respond to. So it was always an interesting paradox of how to take time in the middle of kind of a crisis.
Well, what you find out from reading the book is that as a result of all that, there are problems solved that are very soluble, and maybe more often there are problems that are not soluble in the common medical way. That must be frustrating.
Yeah, although I had the advantage of coming at it as someone who really had hoped to do oncology. And if you think about oncology, you realize that many of the people you're taking care of are, have a fatal illness. And what you're doing is trying to keep suffering to a minimum, preserve dignity, try to help people get through those really difficult days. And we measure oncology by how good the death could be or how well you can take care of someone during that time. And I started to think over time that, these are folks who have been, their course has been set by all the social determinants of poverty. These are people that have grown up in abject poverty, foster care, difficult school systems, in trouble with the law when they were 8 and 9 and 10 years old. So they've struggled and the obstacles are huge. And so I think what I clearly started to realize was that I could change some things, but most things, as just a doctor, I really couldn't change. But I could make sure that their lives, that I could minimize suffering, I could get to know them, I could preserve dignity, and that's been the goal of our program. So when we think sometimes of how do you achieve success, I kind of put it sometimes into the world of oncology at the same time, or of palliative care at the same time, but I think we have to provide the highest quality care we can, and that we certainly do. But we're working upstream. I think homelessness, as you know, is a problem of probably the end stage of bad poverty. And to fix it, we're going to have to fix our many sectors of our society. It's all of that.
You point out in a book that this isn't a story about people who are totally falling through the cracks. There is a good deal of contact with medical providers. It's almost like revolving door medicine sometimes. But what's the missing piece?
Continuity is the missing piece. And I think if there's been a struggle for us and something I think which we've done relatively well, it's one thing I'm pretty proud of, it's to erect a structure where people will see the same doctor, see the same nurses, the same nurse practitioner, no matter whether they're in the shelter clinic or they come into the hospital, or when we have our respite program where if you're recovering from an illness, you'll see the same doctors or the same nurse practitioners. So it's as if without knowing it, we're given the mandate to create a medical home for people so that they would they may not have homes of their own, but when they came for their health care, they would be somewhere where they knew the people that were caring for them.
There has also been news lately about people either getting burned out or just extremely frustrated. I mean, we saw the news story about an emergency medical technician saying something about people with substance abuse problems. Do you ever feel that, or people you work with feel like that you get frustrated and sometimes?
Yeah, we certainly get frustrated. What I think, though, is different for us is that when you fall into the world of all these consequences of obstacles of poverty and everything else, that you frame shift your expectations pretty significantly. And getting to know someone, the more you get to know them, the easier it is to put up with the lack of success. It may sound strange to say it that way, but we count small successes in great ways. We think of how to change things incrementally, not in big surges. And I think we've learned that it's the joy of the relationship that really sustains you, even though someone may struggle and fall back and struggle again. We've learned you just kind of don't give up on someone. And the other thing is, since we work in teams, so I've always worked with a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, another doctor and a psychiatrist in a team. And when you're working in a team, you can share the disappointment around and let go of some of it, and it actually sustains us a lot. So I think if you came and saw most of our teams in the clinics and, in the shelter clinics and out on the street, it's strangely joyful despite the tragedy afoot. So it's another one of those paradoxes that I struggle with a lot.
If you're to look at some impact of Healthcare for the Homeless program, about how it's changed things, what would you point to?
I think when you care for very vulnerable groups who have been excluded, for example, homeless people, and you go out to try to take care of them, what they will do is point out to you way before you would realize it otherwise, the weaknesses in our own healthcare system. So if anything, I would say that trying to care for a homeless population has taught me the value of continuity, the value of making sure as a doctor, I stick with someone wherever they go over a long period of time. And then the second thing we've learned is that you know, when you see these complicated populations, the issues are one of really a complex burden of co-occurring medical problems along with psychiatric issues, along with active substance use issues. And when you try to care for someone with all of those things, you can only do it if you are partnered and collaborating and integrating all of those things. And I think if we've learned anything, it's we can deliver care only when we integrate that. And I think that lesson is now being learned by the mainstream system.
I should mention the book is called Stories from the Shadows. The proceeds will support the program. So if people want to find out more, what's the best way for them to?
You can get the book through our program, and the best way to get it is just come to our website, which is bhchp.org, and it's an easy way to purchase the book that way. And you're right, all the proceeds go to our program, so we encourage you to think about it.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
Dr. James O'Connell.